So in case you missed it, Apple announced something pretty exciting at WWDC this year, and that feature is Flyover. They're overhauling their entire 3D map system to bring higher fidelity imagery across their platform. And if you're subscribed to my channel, you know I cover spatial stuff. That's taking real world places and bringing them into the 3D world. And that's exactly what Apple's doing right here. Because if you fly around Google Maps right now, the trees look like broccoli, and everything looks like a blocky video game. Meanwhile, Apple Maps is bringing true photorealism to a Maps platform. So in this video, you'll see exactly that. I'll be taking you with me to 3 specific locations, comparing Google Maps to the new Apple Flyover side by side. And by the way, if you want to try this for yourself, it's available in iOS 27. The public beta is right now, but by the time you're watching this video, it'll probably be out for everyone. Now, the reason why this is exciting is because Apple is taking a totally different approach than the traditional pipelines 3D maps have been using up until this point. Fly around Google Maps and you're looking at the same technology video games use, 3D meshes. Apple Maps flips that upside down and uses a new technique called Gaussian splatting. So for those that don't know, Gaussian splatting is this new way to represent 3D scenes. It came out of a research paper in 2023, and it was a real breakthrough for visual effects in the 3D industry. And if you're new to all of this stuff, let me explain the differences. A mesh is the traditional method. It uses vertices, edges, and faces to build actual surfaces. Think of it like constructing an object out of tiny connected triangles. That makes meshes great for animations, simulations, all of the traditional 3D stuff that we've been doing up until this point. But here's the thing, clean geometry can only get so detailed. Gaussian splatting is more like a 3D photograph. So instead of surfaces, it uses millions of soft, fuzzy little blobs in 3D space, each with its own size, color, opacity, and direction. Viewed together, they reconstruct the scene with a level of realism meshes just can't match, especially when used for real-world captures and 3D scanning. But I don't want to make this too technical, so let me actually hop into the maps and show you the difference side by side. But first, I do creative tech stuff, so why would I find what's showing up in a Maps app so interesting? Glad you asked. Because this is pretty much the same technology I use to make my own visual art. Just look at 3D scanning, LiDAR, and photogrammetry. That's taking real world places and bringing them into the 3D world. That's what I explore in my spatial and point cloud animations. And the process to scan Gaussian splats is basically the same as point clouds. This is something that you can do yourself. If you want to learn how, I have it all down in the description. I have free and paid resources depending on how deep you want to go. So first up, on the 3 locations, I wanted to pick a place that's close to home, and that's Luna Park in Coney Island. I feel like this is a great first example because with all the amusement park rides, you have very fine details, columns, individual beams, and all of the little structures that build up the roller coasters. So let's see how it holds up and which one does it better. So here is the main amusement park district of Coney Island, and let's zoom into a specific roller coaster. So as for actual detail, Apple Maps wins 100%. It looks like you're looking at an actual photo compared to Google Maps where it looks like a screenshot of a screenshot and like a low texture video game. So if you look at this version on the right for Google Maps, you can see this doesn't look like traditional photogrammetry. It looks like a very low poly version of the real life roller coaster. And the reason for that is that this isn't just photogrammetry out the box. Google has their own specialized pipeline that they take all the scan capture data, depth map, and point clouds, and they turn it into this very simplified version of the mesh with a texture slapped on top. So that's why it looks like video game graphics, where all the rails and everything are very defined, but also in a very low resolution. Now compare that to Flyover. If we zoom into the roller coaster, actually it doesn't even let me zoom in all the way. You can see that you get more fine detail. You get some translucency as well between all the different railings. The rails, they stay separate, and the lattice has air between the beams. So you actually get translucency and fine detail. And we see the same thing with the Wonder Wheel here. And here's where the weakness of Flyover is. If you drop the camera low, you could start seeing sparse splats and gaps That's because the plane used to capture this spatial data never really saw underneath the structure. So if I had to compare between the two, Apple kind of fails here because it misses certain data, but Google fails because it deforms certain data. So the one on the left looks incomplete, but the one on the right just kind of looks a little bit wrong, off, and uncanny. And you can see that again with the parachute jump right here. This is kind of like the Eiffel Tower of Brooklyn. On the left, you can see that there are some missing pieces of the lattice, but it does have that nice translucency. Meanwhile, on the right, you have this kind of cardboard cutout that looks like you'd put together in like a childhood school project of the parachute jump of Coney Island. The more you zoom in, the more you realize that everything kind of just looks melted together in Google Maps, because when you get to very fine detail, that's where the photogrammetry hides apart. As for on the left with Gaussian splatting, you won't get any artifacts. You'll just have missing data in the scan and incomplete areas. So next up on the list, we're traveling to Tokyo, and we are at a shrine called Meiji Jinju. I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation. I already have them up side by side, and you can see right off the bat, the one on the left looks like a photo taken by a person. The one on the right kind of looks like a video game graphic. And here's where the flyover really does shine, where you have trees. Everything looks alive and organic because you see the spaces, you see the translucency of the trees. You can kind of peek inside past the canopy at certain angles and compare that to Google Maps where everything kind of just looks like a blob. Like for anyone that played the game Undertale where all the monsters were just morphed together, that's kind of how it looks like here with these trees. Just it's all a soup. And that's the problem with photogrammetry, where when it struggles, it starts guessing incorrectly. But on the left with Gaussian splatting, if we go to that lower angle again, where the aerial data didn't really capture it, you can see that you just have more sparse data. Like it actually captured a little bit of the ground, but there are certain areas of the branches that are missing. So it's not wrong, it's just missing data, while the meshes are just complete slop. Now, the one thing that I want Apple to fix in their next version of Flyover is when it comes to Google Maps, you really can zoom in a lot to get closer details. If you want to look at the Torii Gate, you can kind of see it here. And as you can see, it's a little bit morphed together as we were talking about. But here on Apple Maps, if we go to that Torii Gate, yes, it is higher detail. Yes, it is higher fidelity. But this is the farthest we can zoom in. So if you want to get like close up, Apple just simply doesn't let you yet. So I'm waiting for that update to come out. Hopefully it does. So that's the thing here. Google Maps, they give you more of the map. But Apple Maps, they give you more of the reality. Now for our last stop, let's go to Italy. And let's go to one of the most popular tourist destinations there, the Duomo. So the thing about the Duomo is that the architecture of it is extremely intricate. And if you zoom in on the Google Maps version, you can see that they're doing the same thing here. It's like a low poly mesh, and then you have the textures kind of glued on top of them. And this pipeline works really well at a distance. But when you zoom in, it's clear that you're really cheating detail here. And here on the Apple Flyover, you get to see the individual accents, the finer details of the spire. Like look up top here. You can actually see the gaps in between each of the pointed structures. Compare that to Google Maps where it's just a cutout, and that's the limitation of the mesh workflow that they're using. You can see that Google Maps has kind of like a more whole map experience. It allows you to get lower, view different angles, but if you want to look at very fine details, that's when things kind of look like they're all morphing together. On the other hand, with Apple Maps, even though the splats give for a more photorealistic appearance, if we zoom in all the way, you can really see it starts to fall apart. But there's a lot less artifacts when it comes to Gaussian splats compared to the meshes where it just all melts apart. And here's the thing, I've already been using Google Maps for my point cloud animations, taking the 3D data, bringing it into Blender, and putting my own little spin on it. But I'm wondering if this data, all of these Gaussian splats from Apple Flyover, if there will ever be a way to take this data and implement it into other 3D packages, whether if there'll be some like hacky workaround or some sort of script or API that someone figures out or Apple will release, or if they'll just open up this data to the public. And this technology is really exciting. I can't wait to see what kind of new stuff they come up with when it comes to Gaussian splats, because the technology just keeps progressing year after year, and it just gets better and better. And anyway, that's it. Wanted to make this video because I like covering cool stuff that's happening in the intersection of art and tech, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.